Swally, a small, poor, and dirty village at the very bottom of Mount Everest, had become the home to a young boy named David. David didn't always live. When he was born, his parents didn't want anything to do with him, so they left him in the village, abandoned, forgotten, and alone. This happens often in this village. When a child is left, like David, they are brought to an old woman named Abaddon who takes them into her home. However, she was not loving at all. Her plan was more than just to take in orphans. Although she provided food and shelter, she used them as slaves. The only time they felt any hint of kindness from her was when they did something right, which was hardly ever. It was a blistering hot day when David was out working in the fields. As always, he stared up at Mount Everlast and dreamed of a day when he might live in the beautiful kingdom with the king. He had heard many villagers whisper of how kind the king was. While he was pulled from his daydreaming by the sound of trumpets and horses trotting into the village, he couldn't help but throw down his shell and run to see what was going on. Hear ye, the king is hosting a banquet for all to come. The feast begins tomorrow at sundown. The king's men repeated their cry as they rode through the village, passing out invitations. Could it be? David thought to himself. Could this be my chance to meet this loving king? He jumped as high as he could to catch one of the invitations as it flew through the air. He put it in his back pocket and ran as fast as he could back to the house. What will I wear? David thought as he frantically searched for the perfect outfit for the king's banquet. Having heard the commotion, Abaddon came storming into the room. What is going on? Demanded Abaddon. There is a royal banquet tomorrow at the kingdom, and the king has invited everyone to come. Isn't that great? David explained with excitement while holding up the invitation. Abaddon paused for a moment, knowing the risk of losing her slave children was real. Don't be silly. What they meant was everyone who deserves to go was invited. Do you really think a poor, dirty boy like yourself would be invited to see the king? Your parents didn't even want you. You have done nothing to deserve this invitation. Oh no. Perhaps Abaddon's right. He doesn't deserve the king's invitation, but David had to find out for himself. That night, while everyone was asleep, David put on his finest clothes. He grabbed the gift he made for the king, climbed out the window, and started his journey up Mount Everest. Abaddon was furious when she realized the next morning that David was gone. Again, and war, she cried. Her two assistants stumbled in breathlessly. What is it that you need from us? They both asked. David has gone up the mountain to see the king at the royal banquet. He must be stopped or we will lose him forever. Now go and do not disappoint me. David had journeyed far enough that he could see the gates of the kingdom up ahead. His excitement grew but was interrupted as two men on horses rushed toward him from the trees. It was Abaddon's men. They jumped from their horses and grabbed David. Akin wrenched the gift from his hands as Enwar shoved him into the mud. Both men stomped and kicked at the small body before mounting their horses. Ha ha ha! What king would want you now? You have nothing to give him. And they rode off, leaving David in the mud. Despite the pain and sorrow he felt, David used the last of his strength to crawl toward the gates. As he lay before the towering fortress, all he could do was cry. One of the guards saw David and approached him. Can I help you? The guard asked. With barely a whisper, David responded, The king's banquet. I was invited, but not now. Look at me. I'm dirty. I have nothing to give him. I don't deserve. David hung his head in defeat, and the guard reached down to take David's arm. As he pulled him up, he said, Let's see what the king has to say about this. So many thoughts were racing through David's mind as the gates opened and the guard led him to the throne room. Oh, I should have never called. What if the king is angry? I should have listened to Abaddon. David fell to his knees before the king and started crying. I'm sorry. I got the invitation, but my clothes and my gift. Shh, whispered the king. You don't need to explain. You were invited not because of what you've done, or what you can do, or what you can bring. You were invited because I love you, David. David never saw Abaddon again. The once poor and unloved orphan had been adopted into the kingdom, and that night he enjoyed the banquet seated next to the king, and spent the rest of his life enjoying the presence of his father. The end. Oh, what a wonderful book. This book really means a lot to us because, again, we helped to lay this out and design it. And if you'd like to own your copy of this book, we'll put a link in the description below. Make sure you like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!